will always vote towards what they see instead of their values. What we talk about here is voting your values, not necessarily what you see.
But that's,
and I think that's part of. I think that is part of the Republicans' messaging that is messed up.
Welcome to the Not Offended Podcast. This is your boy Anthony here. What's going on, the conservative Chicano? We got a hot one for you today. We got a special guest in the house. Not you guys, right? And definitely not you, but we got David Tangipa right here. Yes, what's up, David? So we're gonna do a segment on politics today. As you know, it's gonna be heating up here real quick. We have the indictment of Trump. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. Found an article before we get into all this. I found an article that says his numbers went up. The more they go after this man, the more people love him. David, since you're into politics, let's start off with you. We're going to come off swinging right here, aren't we?
Straight to
David, since you're more into politics probably the rest of us combined, why do you think that is? Why is Trump so popular? Why? The more you make him a martyr, the more everybody says, I'm going to vote for this guy. What do you think's going on?
Well, I would say, think about it on looking at their side of the aisle, different than conservative thought. They specifically ran that we're going to get him. Like we were going to do these things. I mean, if you look at the DA in Manhattan, his campaign was, I will indict Trump. Yeah. He is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. I mean, if they are running on that platform and that is what their hardcore base, especially on the far left, really want, you got to do it.
So do you think this is just going to make him even more popular? The more they throw at him, and they're throwing everything and the kitchen sink at him, you just think, man, you're going to put this guy in the White House.
Well, really, when you look at politics, there are huge shifts. So when one side's in power, there's always a backlash that kind of happens. And so what they're looking at right now with Joe Biden's and the DOJ and everything, they're looking at this like, this is kind of crazy. Like they're actively going after somebody who was a former president. And if they go after somebody who's a former president, what stops them from going after me?
Oh. Wow.
And that's the idea that a lot of like independents and moderates are looking at, saying, this is becoming a banana republic. It's making it very easy to see that there's most likely a corrupt system that and this is the part that makes it's groundbreaking. Comey set the standard when he didn't prosecute Hillary Clinton for bleaching her emails. He set the standard that you should not prosecute somebody who's going to run or the political candidate.
He did.
Mainly because the DOJ and the individual who runs the DOJ, Merrick Garland, is appointed by the president.
Correct.
So the individual appointed by the opponent of an individual running, that is something that you should not touch. And that standard has been changed right now. And so because that conversation that Merrick Garland and Donald Trump had, that's making everybody like, this is scary. Like it does not happen in the United States. Comey set that in 2016, set that standard after she bleached 30,000 emails, and she was only caught with those missing emails because the person she was emailing saved all of them.
Whoa.
So, and that's where
I'm surprised that person didn't end up missing, right, guys? Missing. Seems like everybody Clintons are tied to it one time or another, end up missing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and that was the standard, though. So that's where I think
makes sense.
A lot of people in the middle right now that don't identify as far left, they don't identify as hardcore conservative, and maybe they don't even care about politics.
They're just in the middle.
They're just looking at that as like, well, they're getting him, but we did hear Joe Biden also had documents, and
they all do.
They all had documents,
yeah,
and now also the other stories that are coming out.
I try to explain to the resident. I try to explain to the people who watch this. Thank you for tuning in to the Not Offended Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. We got a special guest, David Tangipa, on here. We're gonna talk about what he's doing, but of course, we got the token. We got the bishop. Man, this guy came out swinging already, huh? You learned more in 5 minutes.
Well, you came out on the spot.
I did, didn't I?
Hey, man, he did a great job.
Are you a Trump supporter or not?
I said, what do you think?
Are you waving the flag on your truck or are you not?
No. What's wrong with the truck and what's wrong with the flag? It's America.
Hey, he did a great job. He got my vote so far.
Great. And then we got, of course, Bill, the agent, sitting next to David. So, I think you bring up a very good point. I was thinking about this and going back to the Hillary thing. We don't have to go that far back. We could just go back to his own son. Mm-hmm. So his own son is in trouble. We're talking about Hunter Biden. And this is what cracks me up. I've never seen somebody, TMZ can't even get this much dirt on somebody as much as there is out on Hunter Biden. With the strippers, the porn, all this stuff, smoking crack. There's videos. And it's like, this is the first time World Star or TMZ didn't have it, you know what I mean? But other people had it. And it's like nothing sticks to the kid. Mm-hmm. And it's like that, and then you're going to go after Trump for something like this. That should be a concern. You know, it just so you know, here we were never, you know, we all been working together for a long time, and we never used to talk politics as much as we were talking about it in the last 3 years, because we see how just how dirty it is and how one-sided it is and how corrupt it is. And they wonder why people in the middle really got a problem, right? They wonder like what's really going on. So tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, how you ended up in Fresno. Give us a little bit of something about you. Go ahead, tell us.
So I'm born and raised, grew up in Sacramento. My mom's originally...
Where are you from in Sac?
I'm from North Highlands.
Oh, are you really? Okay, so did you go to Grant High School? Where'd you go?
I went to Foothill.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
okay.
I lived across the street from where Grant's line was. If you know where McClellan Air Force Base, I grew up right there, Watton A Street.
Okay.
So right off of Watton A Street, there's a McDonald's on the corner of Roseville and Myrtle.
Wow.
That was one of my first jobs, was at that McDonald's.
Okay. So for the listeners, real quick, Grant High School is in Northern California in the Sacramento area. It's one of the powerhouses. I don't think there's another high school, and there might be catching up. Folsom might be catching up. Granite Bay might be catching up. But at one time, nobody put more people in the NFL than Grant High School. Very known for all the poly players that played there. Just so everybody to know, I used to coach up there, Lincoln of Lincoln, Go Fighting Zebras. So, and we used to always know that the Grant boys always came to play. I think in, what was it, 08 or 09, they won state championship. So they've always had produced just a plethora of poly players.
And you went to Lincoln?
I went to Lincoln High School of Stockton.
Oh, okay.
Go Trojans.
Got it.
Yes, I'm from the other part of the 209. You know where it matters, right? Go Stockton. So
Stockton matters?
yeah, Stockton slap, bro. We got our own slap named after us.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
thought you just know for
Don't you know the Diaz brothers? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Stockton's on the map.
You got
Okay.
one ghetto famous person. You guys steal cars.
We have a ton of ghetto famous people.
They're brothers. It's two.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Anyway, moving on.
Slapping people on the street.
Go ahead. So Sacramento, real quick, that was powerhouse. So and then you ended up in Fresno.
Yeah, well, grew up there and spent my whole life kind of pretty much right there in North Highlands, and then got the opportunity to walk on to play football at Fresno State. And so I wanted to get out from that situation of where I grew up, and the only way that I saw that ability, especially growing up in North Highlands, you know, there's three things you usually get out.
Tell them.
You're rapping, you're selling drugs, or you're playing sports. And I'm not a good rapper, I could say that. And I'm not going to sell drugs. And, I decided to go and play football and try to do that with my athletic ability. And so I got that opportunity. I was a walk-on for 2 years, earned a scholarship. Then a couple of guys came onto the team, and I knew that those guys were NFL guys, and I'm going to be an education guy. So I decided to get a degree in political science, criminology, and a legal studies certificate, and then I got my master's in business. During that time, I got my real estate license and started real estate investing with another individual that played football at Fresno State. He had his own company doing 150 flips a year, and I knew very early on that it's the only way to break generational poverty in the United States. One easy way to do it is through home ownership. And so I had that path that I wanted to do. I've helped over 60 of my friends, a lot in the North Highlands area and a lot here, become first-time homeowners because their parents are generational renters. We've broken that cycle. And so a lot of friends that I'm putting into homes, and just looking at the community that I grew up in, there was an opportunity, and so kind of ran with it, and
so
here today.
Can you let our audience know what nationality you're Tangipa? Let them know what that is.
Yep, I'm Tongan American. My mother immigrated here. And
okay, so just so everybody knows, Tongan, right there, that's how you do it. So if you're a 49er fan, you're free safety. That's what he does every time he makes a good play.
See, and a lot of my Tongan family, like they call me Miko, which means Mexican, because I don't look Tongan. So
Miko, Sabes que, for those of you who don't know, you need to watch the movie, okay? Blood in, Blood Out. You'll get it later.
So they don't
watch that.
I don't look.
Did you watch? Do you know? Did you watch?
I was at my friend's house, and I was like, I should not be watching this right now.
If my mom finds out, yes, I see.
I'm kidding, Sean. I'm just Bishop.
Yeah, I just love talking to back you up.
Bishop,
we're just back you up.
We're just having a little bit of convo.
Everyone knows.
I like it though, Miko. That's great. Yeah, you do got a little Mexican, but you're so tall, bro.
Yeah,
that's what does you wrong. We say you have a lot of Spanish blood in you or something because you're so tall.
Well, I grew up in North Highlands, and so all of my friends are Mexican, and so maybe I got a little bit of that in me too.
There you go.
But I'm just
what brought you into politics then? I mean, if you were doing really good in real estate, then tell everybody what you're running for, and then tell us what brought you to politics.
Well, so I am running for State Assembly District 8, which the State Assembly is essentially, you got to think of it like the House of Representatives for the state of California.
Okay.
We have 80 assemblymen and women, and then there's 40 state senators. And so I'm running for the House of Representatives for the state of California.
And what region are you going to be covering?
So it covers Fresno, Madera, Mono, Inyo, Mariposa, Tuolumne, and Calaveras counties.
Wow.
So it's second largest district behind Assembly District 1. But technically sparse of population, a lot of traveling. So it basically borders Las Vegas and goes all the way up and borders Amador County. So if you're familiar with Amador.
We know where Amador County is. Of course we know where Amador County is.
Well, I used to play that high school
Amador and Calaveras. Come on, we know all those counties.
Yep.
I have no idea where any of that is. Amador County?
Well, if you go up Modesto, you start heading up to the foothills. Between Modesto and Stockton, start heading up to the foothills.
He covers all the foothills.
Yeah, all the foothills like Oakhurst and Mariposa. Just keep going, more foothills. On your way to Old Oak Ranch.
So you got to have a truck with the Trump flag.
It's America all day. And he's got his gun hanging right on the back right there. Yep. And his bucket,
keep that hand on the wheel.
The funny part, there is a spot in Sonora where I believe it's the only bar and gun shop in California, or one of the only ones.
Oh,
yep.
my goodness.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool spot. So. But it is a bar, and then behind you can buy ammo and gun and all of that.
I don't think I can go there.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take pictures for you.
Yeah, thanks.
You can go there.
How do you want me to respond to that? I'll take you.
Bring some friends to the shop.
No, we're going to take the bill.
I'm going to Mike or Bill.
No, I'm not going with either. You're gonna get me.
We're on our own?
You're gonna get me in trouble.
It's a great place.
Sorry, we were putting him in a bad spot. He's trying to win.
He's trying to represent. It's going to be fine, Deshaun. Yeah. Don't worry. You're going to be in good hands. Bill, so real estate, Bill, what were you thinking when he was talking about real estate? You're our agent here. Come on.
I do, and I'm an advocate the same for you for home ownership. Mm-hmm. I think that is one way out of poverty is from being a renter into home ownership. So I love what you're doing there. But my question, you gave us the breakdown of the state assembly. You got 80 assemblymen in the state. Is that correct? 80.
We're in California, Bill. It's 80 assemblies, persons.
But how do you? So you're as a conservative. I believe the state assembly has a supermajority in the Democratic side. How do you plan to govern or make some effects as the minority party?
Well, this is actually what I tell people, especially when I go in and meet with them. I was like, I'm not going to negotiate with Sacramento. I'm going to try, but because they have the super minority, you really don't need to. They don't. Republicans right now and conservatives cannot even show up to work, and they can pass whatever bills they want because they have quorum. Quorum means you just have 2/3.
Right, you have the numbers.
And so you have the numbers. But right now, my message is actually go and to speak to other people in these districts that they have been voting against their beliefs. I look at like what happened with the Sisterhood of Perpetual Indulgence. And it was this group that is an anti-Catholic and likes to make fun of not just the Catholic religion, but all religions. I mean, they vehemently hate it. And yet you look at Latinos, and Latinos vote 80% Democratic. They're voting 80% against their Latino values, and their Catholic values. What I want to do is actually change the messaging for conservatives, because if we can't win those individuals in heavily blue districts by registration, that's our fault. That's not Sacramento's fault. That's not anybody else's fault, because the only way to effectuate change is actually winning in districts that we've never won before. But that's because of our messaging. We've lost messaging, but we haven't lost the message. And that's where I want to update our infrastructure when it comes to our side of the issues in our party. And I have a master's, and I focused on marketing. And how can we tell our story a lot better? Because us as conservatives, we always like to throw pie charts and fact sheets and all of this. That doesn't work as a salesman.
Right.
We always talk about the emotional appeal. And I want to really update on that. I look at, and where I've worked on multiple campaigns and ones that we've won in very, very blue districts that shouldn't be held by a conservative, but it is today. But if you look at Amador County right now, doesn't even have a Republican website. So where somebody can go and read that's from 1998. If we're not able to update our infrastructure right now, I know those on the opposite side, because I'm the vice chair for the state Young Republicans, and I represent the Valley. I tell them, I have friends on the opposite side that are preparing right now to use AI for the left-leaning individuals and to target those, and yet we can't even have websites in certain counties that vote at a very high rate. That's an issue internally. So my job is actually to go update the infrastructure for our party and really work at developing a message so we can reach those who just don't know that they're voting against their own values.
Well, that was good. Okay, so let's just get right into it. This is the Not Offended Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe. And man, go ahead and share this link. We're talking everything politics today, and we got a special guest, David Tangipa, who's running for California State Assembly, which is a tall task. If you, for all of you watching from out of state, man, California is popping. We're having a hard time defining what a woman is. I mean, not us, but California in general. We got Gay Day all the time in June. I mean, it's ridiculous over here. And so, to really be taking on Sacramento, and I hear you're not really taking on Sacramento, but I get what you're saying there, but you are. We talked about messaging. I want you to tell from just your own words, if you can articulate, what is a conservative message then? What is that message? Because I think you talked a lot about, our message hasn't changed. It's our messaging or it's our platforms that we use. Well, what's the message? I don't think conservatives know their own message anymore.
I mean, you're 100% right. And that's where we have to look at, in the state of California, and when you're in politics, you have to look at each state and each district. The easiest way that I describe it is a board game. And so if you look at the state of Texas, Texas is very conservative, or Tennessee, or all of these areas are very conservative. They try to tell California conservatives, like, you guys need to do it just like this. It does not work here. Here needs to be a lot more of a compassionate conservative in the state of California, because we're trying to reach out to people who have been indoctrinated, and they think that the word Republican and racist are synonymous. That's the issue that we have to get over here in California, is because we've allowed somebody else to dictate the narrative. We need to be better individuals as telling the story. And that's where I talk about, if I can tell somebody that I'm not crazy and the other side is crazy, that's where they'll be able to vote on our side. But when I talk about like the conservative message, if I say, look, we want to lower taxes, we want to believe in public safety, and we want to make California affordable and great for all individuals, not some individuals. It's that message as a California conservative with compassion that I think could really win some people over.
So what I heard you say was less taxes, affordable housing for all. And what was the third one?
Well, public safety.
And the public safety. Okay.
And because public safety is where I really do think, like, if you do not feel safe, you will move. And then that void gets captured by somebody else who, that's where you get Gotham City. That's where you get these things that are happening in LA right now. And LA County just stated that they're about to enforce a policy that states that if you commit a nonviolent crime, any nonviolent crime, they will not arrest you. You can be in somebody's house, and as long as there isn't a person there that you've assaulted or anything else, and you could have cleared out the whole thing, if it's nonviolent burglary, they won't arrest you. These things are scary for a lot of people, that I think that's something that conservatives have to capture right now.
So what are you guys hearing over there? What thoughts you got going on?
I think when you were describing just the conservative message and how it's been tweaked over the years. I think part of my confusion is somebody who didn't grow up conservative, originally from Portland, Oregon. I got two moms.
You're liberal.
Yeah, I was about as far left as you can get, and now I'm not. And so part of my confusion is that, like, in our city, we have somebody who says they're a conservative, who's a mayor, who's raising the gay flag, and he's very. You talked about public safety. We had a church that was demonstrated against with protesters outside the doors for over a year. We had masked men who were harassing our children, our wives. We had people who looked like they were getting ready to shoot up the place every week, and that was our church service. That wasn't a protest that we provided or anything like that. And we had a conservative quote unquote mayor who was okay with that, who was actually very against us as a conservative church. So that's like some confusion that I have, where it's, what is the conservative message? What is this conservative message that we're trying to push out? What's it rooted in? Is it just rooted in economics? Is it rooted in the Bible? Like, what is your conservative message going to be rooted in?
It's actually just sanity, and that's where my conservative message is, just on sanity for California. It's crazy here. You have to be data driven when it comes to politics now. When you look at it, there's 10 million registered Democrats to 5.3 million registered Republicans. And if we, again, want to push change, we do have to and this is where I say, we do have to talk to them. We have to talk to those on the opposite side, but we have to be rooted in our core conservative values. Where if we're talking about
where do those come from? Your conservative values. You said sanity. Well, there's a lot of people who think that dressing up as a squirrel and going to school is sane, right? So they would say that that's sane. So where's the sanity? Like
so and I would say that's just pushed a lot more on the far left. It is not. Like if you look at the independents, they see that 80% of them view that as insane. That if we can. Some kid wants to dress up as a animal, or what are they called? Furries. And then you should put a litter box. And what most people don't know is that happened in Loudoun County in Virginia. Is that they literally put litter box. That is a majority of people see that as insanity. But when it comes to telling the narrative. But my core conservative values are rooted in God. I mean, that is where mine are, especially as a Polynesian individual. I don't think I've ever met an atheist Polynesian. So that's...
I think your parents would have something to say about that if that happened, yeah.
I'll tell you this, my mom is not even close to allowing that. But it is where, like I look at it when it comes to California. I have to talk to them because the only way to effectuate change is by working with other individuals, and especially if they have a 2-to-1 majority, and the only way that you wouldn't work with them is, I mean, there are other preparations that you would have to do, to go beyond that. But it's, I do think Mayor Dyer's in a different position. And I look at that as, on our side, he has a 6-to-1 left-leaning board in Fresno. If we're not able to win those seats and those areas, that is on us. There are districts there that should have been held by a conservative that are not. And I think what the mayor really looked at...
No, why?
I think it falls on... the internal infrastructure. We haven't done a good job at recruiting individuals who can win these areas and then actually talk about it. One of the main areas that I'm working on is actually getting a lot of real estate agents, because I think real estate agents have a good position at being people and business. And then if we can get these individuals to be on message when it means like, hey, if on the city council, they're nonpartisan races, but most people there will vote for the person that they believe is best for the city. They're not as much into, are you a conservative or are you a Republican? They're looking for somebody that can kind of push out the message and say, okay, well, that person's good for the city, or I like that person, or I can get a beer with them. So, and that's where I look at it. And I mean, the mayor's position is he wants one Fresno. I mean, that's what he's always talked about. And it falls a little bit different. But when you look at the data and you look at his board and all of these things, he's trying to keep everything a little bit cohesive.
Okay, in your opinion, then, let's talk a couple things. So you said one of the things is economics. Mm-hmm. So I think, in my opinion, what has put the wedge between the people and the politicians is politicians go into politics poor and come out wealthy. What happened to being a civil servant? What happened to being the people that, hey, we're just going to make a middle of the road income, instead you're getting pay raises, and you have a mayor who double dips. I mean, you know that. He double dips. He gets paid his retirement, and he gets paid to be the mayor. I mean, if you ask me, that's not one Fresno, that's one Jerry Dyer. That's me getting paid. That's me living in the Bluffs, golfing on 18 holes, chummy buddy with all the other rich people in town. I mean, you balling out. I mean, we talk about getting a message out there. It's still the haves and the have-nots. It always has been. And they look at Republicans as white rich people. Well, that's exactly who your mayor exemplifies: white rich people of privilege. So if you're talking to a real Latino right here, you're talking to a Chicano, you're talking about, you want to reach my gente, you want to reach my people. Well, if you're going to reach my people, you got to come with it. You got to be able to say, listen, there is this issue. I don't think you lost races because you didn't have the right people. You lost races because of races. Bottom line. You people, the Hispanic people, looked out there and they saw a Hispanic last name. Listen, I'll tell you right now, Catalano was a lot better representative than Annalisa Perea. She won because of her last name. Had nothing to do with analytics. It had nothing to do with data. Had nothing to do with anything else. It was her last name. Can't say because she was gay. Catalano was gay. In the gay district right here. And nobody knows that better than us about the gay district. So that's what I'm saying. I think we're just off a little. We're saying it's all this and it's all that, and we have to work with them. No. I think what happens is we don't put, not only do we not put the right people in place, is definitely the messages, because it comes, leadership is top down. Leadership is top down. And so people see that. You had all these conservatives who saw the dire waffle on the gay flag. Now we have, what did we do? We had another gay thing. We had like a gay day or something. No, we had the city council vote to put a gay person in charge with a $100,000 budget to
A liaison.
A liaison. For what? You got the most privileged people in all of society who have something gay going on. Was that website? They have something gay going on like every other day. Mm-hmm. The mental health services. We had a youth drag show. And nobody pushes back. Mm-hmm. How come the mayor doesn't come out and say, hey, that's inappropriate? We shouldn't have a youth drag show. Shouldn't be a drag show for kids at the zoo. I'm just saying, I think what happens is people look who are conservative, who are Hispanic, and we go, look at that guy.
But I would say this to David's defense, because even when Obama ran, and they're seeing that a lot of black churches voted for Obama, they're promoting, they have posters in their churches of Obama. I'm like, you're kidding me. Coming back to my parents who are like, well, no, we're going to always vote our values. Like, we ain't voting for this fool. I do think a lot of people who are conservative that are black or people of color will always vote towards what they see instead of their values. What we talk about here is voting your values, not necessarily what you see. But that's, and I think that's part of. I think that is part of the Republicans' messaging that is messed up. Yep. I do see, and I know Daily Wire promotes this a lot. They're like, a lot of conservatives are lazy. You see a lot of progressive people always pushing their message, working hard to get it out there. And conservatives just like, I'm just going to stay back. I'm not really going to do it.
But that's where. But if I could, so, and this is the thing that it's very easy to blame the politician, and it's very easy. It's like, to look at those. But it's the voter. We are getting everything that we voted for. Californians are getting everything that they voted for.
I agree with you 100%.
And so, but that's where I look at it. Like, it's. A lot of people hate, politicians go in and they're wealthy and all these things. And, I don't look at Jerry's as double dipping, because he was the police chief, and that is a retirement that he had.
So why don't he do what Trump do?
Well, I would say that would be different. But I look at
why Trump said I'm already wealthy. I don't need to get paid.
I don't think it's a take
but that's
poverty,
where,
though.
But the issue, then
why give yourself a pay raise, or why let people vote you in a pay raise?
The pay raise was for the board.
Okay.
But that's where I look at it. In the sense of, like, I like the structure on how Clovis, the city of Clovis, does theirs. They only get paid about $2,500 and they're part-time.
Exactly.
And they have to have a job. But it was the individuals that we voted into and we voters allowed that to happen. And that's on us. The only controllables, and this is what I take away from Fresno State football, is you can only control your controllables. And what we can control is messaging to the individuals that agree with you. You talk about being Latino, but a majority of Latinos are voting against their values. That's where we really need to step back instead of keep talking about the politician and say, how do we reach the individual that just doesn't know that they're voting against their values? That's the part, is if we can get those individuals to start saying, look, the lies about Republicans being the white racists and all of these other things, that is not true. And here's what we want you to look into. There's a campaign that I'm working on with multiple individuals in different media sets that specifically to get individuals off of the religion of the left. You have to get them to question the religion first. That is what we're working on right now, because if we get them to question, well, yeah, I'm a Democrat, but I didn't know that I was voting for these things. And I'm a devout Catholic. And why did the entire Democratic Party here in California give a standing ovations to the Sister of Perpetual Indulgence? But on Easter, they had a fundraiser where they were using Jesus Christ as a stripper pole and had somebody on a cross. And that's where, if I give them a pamphlet and it's in Spanish and it says, hey, did you know that these individuals gave a standing ovation? And then you inform them, and then you get into the district of who's ever in the district that they represent and say, this person stood up and supported them. You need to vote on your values again. That's where we've lost. We've lost as conservatives.
David, I totally agree with you that we are reaping what we have sown as far as voting. Listen, I will not push back on that. If anything, if you follow the podcast, I'm not saying you have to, we push on the voters. We tell them all the time, you got what you voted for. Hopefully, I don't think nobody hammers that as hard as I do, especially to my own people. I will say this. I will say, and I don't mean this in an aggressive, in a rude way, but I will tell you this. Like, even you saying put it in Spanish, you need to realize that it's the second and third generation. It's the Chicanos. There's a difference between first generation Mexicans who come over here and then those of us who are second, third, fourth generation deep. We align ourselves with a lot more of American culture, and that's why we're called Chicanos. We're Mexican, of course, by ethnicity, but we're American by nationality. And it's not that we don't know. My mom has been a lifelong Democrat. But the Democrat Party that she thought she used to vote for is not the same. The same thing go for the black church. There are a lot of more black people coming out. I'm letting you know right now, it's not just the messaging. It's also what we see. And that's why I'm trying to convey, like, you see this, you see the lack of support. You see that certain people only come after the people of color vote only when it's time for voting, and the rest of the year we forget about the people. And that's what I'm saying from my perspective, right? And I've watched my mom shift, and I'm talking, this is a hardcore 60-year, lifelong Democrat right here. I've watched her shift.
My family the exact same way.
With the Gavin Newsom, being in office and stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. So as much as I say, I know you say it's not the politician, you have to aggressively go after the politician. It's Newsom. It is his policy. It's who he is, because we have to expose this and we have to let him know that, hey, I know you think you're voting this way, but really you're voting for this person and this is who they are.
But that's where I then go back and I put it on our side. How did we not connect with those individuals? Like, how is our messaging so wrong that we know this person agrees with me? Maybe they're a 90s Democrat, and a 90s Democrat is a Republican today.
Correct.
A 2005 Democrat is a Republican today.
They weren't really born in that time, so we're talking Clinton voters. Yes.
And that's where I say it's like, how did we've said all of those things, but they talk about there's that, the racist, white, rich politician who just became a millionaire, trillionaire by just, that's what the Republicans vote for. And then they voted for the longest politician, the apparently person who wrote the 1994 Violent Crime and Law Enforcement Act, which created super predators and put generational families into, prison.
Mass incarceration.
All of that, and then voted that person as president. That is us as conservatives losing the message that they just said that they hate the richest white billionaires and all that. And yet the person who controlled their party was Nancy Pelosi, was one of the richest members of Congress. Joe Biden wrote all the policies.
Who's related to Gavin Newsom?
Which is his aunt, Joe Biden, who wrote all the policies that literally they said put them in prison on the black side. And then all of those things. And he was in government since 1967 and born in 1944. He was alive and breathed the same air when Hitler was alive.
Right.
That is a crazy thing to say, is that they said that they hate the white, racist, rich, all of that, tear down the rich.
It exemplifies all of it.
And then voted him as president of the United States. Right. That's on us. That's on us not getting the message out to individuals that we have never talked to before.
So I have $1 million question then. $1 million. Ready? Why did Trump win?
In 2016?
Why?
Well, Trump actually won, and I'll tell you this, by the data, that was the lowest voted general election in the history of the United States. The Democrats did not show up for Hillary Clinton.
Oh, hold on. You played football, right?
Yep.
As you said. End of the day, coach comes in, and he says what about the win?
A win's a win.
There you go. So I don't want to hear lowest data.
You have to look at it from
Hey, no offense. Scoreboard.
Yep.
Scoreboard. So low data, low nothing. Why did he give it to me? Why did he win?
And because it was a referendum on Hillary Clinton. They did not show up to vote for Hillary Clinton. She motivated 0 people to show up. But Donald Trump, there were enough core conservatives. He got individuals that never show up. So when I look at... Oh, because it was the disenfranchised conservatives who are asking for somebody to be a fighter.
What are we disenfranchised about? What were we so disenfranchised? See, you're talking messaging.
Yeah.
You're talking messaging.
Feckless Republicans.
What was his message?
Donald Trump's is that he is here to fight for you. That was pretty much his message. But it was a referendum on Hillary Clinton.
Oh, scoreboard.
Their quarterback was hurt.
Yeah.
Hey, we got that rig, though. We got the rig. No, you don't like football anyway. You only talk basketball. And I can go all day. You still got to have an offensive line. You still got to have somebody run the ball. You still got to have somebody throw the ball to. But what was his messaging that got voters out? So you're sitting here and you're telling me that we got to work on our messaging. Okay, you didn't acknowledge the fact that he got more Hispanic votes than any other Republican president.
In 2020.
Exactly. You didn't acknowledge some intangibles that he did.
Well, I was like 2016.
But he did what other Republicans were not able to do since Reagan.
In 2020.
Yeah, since
So,
Reagan.
In 2016, he did not.
And we know Reagan won by a landslide.
Yep.
Twice.
And
Okay.
why? Because he's a great storyteller.
Okay, so what was his number one message? You're poli-sci major. This is you pass or fail right here, Professor Flores. Okay, what was his number one message? Reagan's message against government.
That the government is not here to come and help you. There is no government solution to things. There are only government problems.
Government can't solve the problem. Government is the problem.
Exactly.
Smaller government, less taxes, right?
And I think that's one of the biggest issues, because you have talked about you want to help people with housing, you want to help the crime rate, but also you want to lower taxes. How do you do those two by lowering taxes?
You can, first off, the only thing that you can get to is actually changing and winning. That's the part. It's about winning.
Scoreboard?
It is on that side. But changing the taxes is like we just need to get people. And this is one thing that we have and we need to be aware of right now is that Prop 13, and this is back to a policy.
No, go ahead. Prop 13 is what?
I really wanted to answer back on the 2016-2020 message on that.
We got time, don't worry, but tell everybody what Prop 13 is.
So Prop 13 is actually, it was solidified in 1976, I believe, that kept our taxes at a basis of 1%. So that is why California state taxes are some of the lowest state taxes in the entire union. And so with that, it's based off of a purchased property value. So if your family purchased a property in the 1940s and it was worth $50,000, your basis starts at that purchase value. And then if whatever you want to build on it, but it keeps you at a 1% basis, and then they can only raise it by 2% when they reassess your property of the purchase value. That is being negotiated on the floor right now if they should change and repeal Prop 13 with 2/3 and then change it to a land value tax. So that what that means is that if your parents owned a property from the 1940s and then they didn't do anything with it, and across the street maybe there's a high density residential housing and all that, you now have a $4 million tax basis on that they want to change. And so that's where right now it's actually just protecting some of the things is the only thing that we can fight on.
They're coming after the money.
Because they are. Because we are a super minority here in California. And this is what I like to tell all conservatives across California, why they have to support California conservatives, because we are the front line to fight crazy. And if we can get crazy to stop in California, we are the frontline fighters here. We need their support to keep crazy from being bleeding out everywhere else. It's just like with AB 957. It's these things that are coming out that in California, we have to take a defensive approach and then an informative approach to the general voters. Because this is what I look at when it comes back to the data. In 2018 and in 2020, Californians voted conservative down ballot when it came to all of the propositions. They didn't support Prop 26 and 27, the gambling rules. They didn't support, actually in 2018, Prop 13 was going to be adjusted to where they would repeal it on commercial properties. Not on residential anymore. That was voted no by California conservatives. So voters are voting conservative and just don't know it. And so we have the opportunity right now to capture a lot of these individuals. And that's where in California, we're taxed on everything. If we can tell everybody that they are going to continuously tax you and raise taxes, there's no breaking out of generational poverty. They want to create that through scarcity. If you want to create it through scarcity and then you make somebody dependent on the government, that's the part where we are really starting to, I think people are really starting to get ready to fight. Truly, and get it going.
Let the other people who watch Not Offended podcast from other states, you need to understand what he's saying is our state taxes are low. That's no lie. That's
property taxes.
Excuse me, property taxes. Those are some of the lowest. If you go to Oregon, those property taxes are higher, and that's because those taxes are allocated to different areas. But where we get hammered as Californians is our local taxes. Our local taxes always seem to go up. That's because people don't know how to balance a budget and they don't know how to take pay cuts. They want to live fat off the hog. That's my own opinion. Okay, now moving on. So going back to going back to this this conservative mentality, I think what you just articulated was brilliant, and I think about the messaging with that, and about how if people were aware, because most people like me, we heard Prop 13, we're like, what the heck is Prop 13?
Exactly.
We hear AB 957, which is the bill to basically push the gay agenda and the trans agenda into your own home, so that if your kid doesn't feel safe, they'll come yank your kid out of your home and tell you can't see your kid no more while your kid transitions without you knowing. Ludicrous. Okay, so going back to this, I think going back, you wanted to just piggyback a little bit about this Reagan era, which was the golden years, the golden era, as you know, being a poli-sci major. I think
49 out of 50 states.
It has not been done. Can you believe
not
that?
even remotely close.
Did you guys didn't know that, did you? He killed him. It was it Mondale? Was it Mondale that he beat on the 49? No, it was Ford. Who did he beat with the 49 to 50?
That was the 84 election, but I don't remember who he was running against.
That was good. 84 is a good year. That was the year I was born.
Oh, okay, great. It was a good year then.
So I wasn't voting.
Going back to that. So let's go back to that. So being a poli-sci major, we talked about this Trump anomaly. Mm-hmm. Okay, in 2020, since we're in California, we have what's called the San Key Valley. This is a little bit outside the San Key Valley, but just to give you guys a little reference here. So from Bakersfield, which is right there on the border of the Grapevine to go into SoCal, all the way up to what we would say, we would go ahead and say Lodi Galt area, which is Elk Grove, which is right before Sacramento. Why is that always red, including the foothills, and why did Trump still win those in 2020 if everybody hated the guy? Why is he such an anomaly?
Are you just talking about the valley, or are you talking about
valley, just the valley? We already know the coast will never. The coast even wouldn't vote for Jesus if he showed up. Okay, so it's not going to happen. We understand that. But why was he still an anomaly if he had such a bad message and if he was such a bad guy? Why was he still able?
I wasn't saying that.
No, I know.
Okay,
I'm saying what other people are saying. We're talking about messaging, though.
Yep.
This guy never had anybody on his side when it came to any news outlet. Mm-hmm. Nothing. The guy, listen, you're a Reagan person. The guy literally could walk on water, and they say it's because he couldn't swim. Mm-hmm. That's a Reagan quote, right? So what was so effective? You talk messaging. See, to me, what I don't get, the left looks at what Barack Obama did, and they say we just need to repeat that. Mm-hmm. That's all we need to do. Because that guy, he came close. He crushed it that first time around.
And this is where, so politics has changed significantly since Reagan. I mean, a lot more people were into, well, I like that guy's policies, or, this isn't working, and then they shift it. Now it's all becoming emotional. It's people are voting for the person that they think they can get a beer with. They think they're going to vote for the person who, they can get lunch with or something like that.
Who thought that about Trump?
They didn't. They didn't think about that. And that's what I'm saying. That's the issue with voters today, is especially those on the other side, is that they are only voting emotionally who they like.
Okay.
It's changed significantly from the policy standpoint. But this is where, when it comes back to the Valley may have registration when it's like Fresno County. Fresno County right now, there are more registered Democrats than there are Republicans. Mm-hmm. But that's just because there are a lot of old generation Democrats that vote conservative. And that is throughout the entire Valley. There are a lot of 90s Democrats who won't change their registration, but they are voting conservative. Okay, so if you look at the Valley from an individual,
I get it. We're going back to messaging, right? So
I'm just saying the Valley is conservative. The Valley is very conservative on all sides.
But he was the most hated person. You got to remember. Let's go back. Let's all go back in time. I know it's traumatic, but let's go back in time. It was 2020, mm-hmm. the midst of the coronavirus, BLM, trans movement. He got no positive publicity, mm-hmm. and yet Biden still couldn't pull out the Valley. Why is that? Why when you would be literally vilified if people knew you were voting for Trump? Why was he still? What was so? It took the largest turnout in history.
Yep. 2020 was the largest turnout.
Which, by the way, you know this because you were studying it, where if he just would have swung a couple counties, he'd have been back in. Mm-hmm. It was that close. Most people don't realize that. It wasn't that far.
Nope.
It was that close. How? How can a guy who gets no positive run at all, who's his own best, who literally got everything deactivated from him, what was so effective about his messaging?
Well, the 2021, again, because of COVID and all of these state laws and everything that changed, when they went when a couple of these states went to a mail ballot system, like in Pennsylvania and
Which
Arizona,
they're not doing anymore. That was it.
And this was the issue, is that by sending a mail-in ballot, and why California shifted to that, it basically now empowered individuals who weren't motivated enough to go to a polling location to submit that. Because if you actually look at the data in 2020, even though Joe Biden came out with 81 million votes and all of these, down ticket, Republicans picked up a majority of state seats. So what that means when you're looking at the data is some person that probably isn't motivated to vote at all, doesn't really pay attention to politics, got a ballot, looked at the top of the ticket, somebody probably knocked on the door and said, hey, because I'll tell you this, working in politics, I know who's turned in a ballot and I know who hasn't. I know their registration. I know if they like to drink water on Tuesday. I can tell you that. Like, it's ridiculous how much data is out there. They knocked on the door, said, you know what, just mark the top, forget about the rest, turn that in. That is what a lot of walking campaigns and everybody else did on the opposite side, and where conservatives, there was a big part that said, don't turn in your mail-in ballot, like go vote in person, don't turn it in. But what that did was, on the day of election, on Tuesdays, and it happens to a lot of people, they get done with work and they're like, damn it, I forgot to go vote. Yeah. I'm not turning in this mail-in ballot because I don't think it'll be counted, but I'm also not going to drive to the polling station. He has it. I'll stay home. That was what has happened to us, which is why you've seen a huge shift across the entire country where Republicans are like, you got your ballot, turn it in. That is a huge message now that it is turning your ballot, because if you looked at the data on the 2020 election, right, top of the ticket may have leaned there. But if you look down ticket, all conservative, mainly conservative, and a lot of conservatives picked up that.
And that's because Trump won states that he won before by a landslide now.
Exactly, like Ohio and Florida.
So let's go there.
Let me get to Pennsylvania. And this is where, even in Trump's lawsuit, he didn't sue the results of the election. He sued because in Pennsylvania Constitution, it states only the legislature can adjust the election, and yet it was done under emergency ordinance. That should have been picked up by the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court said no, because they didn't want to work into an election. You know, it's the same thing with like the whole Comey DOJ and all of those things.
Which I don't think they should.
I'll tell you this. I do believe that we need to put more conservative individuals, because I'll tell you that if Merrick Garland can charge Trump and indict him, he was the appointee that was supposed to be where Neil Gorsuch is.
Listen,
he is an activist. And if we're not doing, and this is where conservatives are taking off their white gloves and slapping people in the face, like French slapping, and the Democrats are stabbing us in the stomach. That's the difference, where we need to be more conservative.
French slapping, I'm going to use that. I never heard that.
I mean, but that's what's happening is, like, we do need confident conservatives, and also to push in different areas. You need to get on school boards. You need to get here.
Yes.
You need to stand your ground and keep your conservative values.
Is there enough of that? Is there enough people like you out there pushing that? Because I like what you're saying.
Not at all.
Not at all. Because I don't hear. It's the first time I'm hearing that the game, the voting game was changed. The rules of the game was changed, but Republicans were still playing
by the old rules.
Schools.
Yep, that is exactly right.
100%.
I just heard street fight is all I heard. I mean, he says stab him in the stomach. I don't know.
It's like the NBA. We're in a 3-point. We threw a 3-point shot now, and Republicans are still playing the big.
We're playing in the box.
You're gonna lose. And so how do
we're still running the veer offense, and everybody else is running the air raid. So that is what's happening. I mean, that is the easiest way to put it. Is exactly how you're stating it.
So I see with the Republican Party, it's a lot harder for them to change quickly versus the Democrat Party. And what I'm hearing from you is I like the fact that a lot of things that you're saying, but there's like an old guard that's still kind of around.
Very old guard
who's not letting go of the reins yet. How do you get them to come on board? Republicans, the old school Republicans, to go, hey, there's a new way to come on board.
Well, and that is something that I'm dealing with my campaign. You know, I'm 27 years old, and you know they always question me on my experience, all these, and my work with Supervisor Magsig and what I've done. I'll tell you this, I have a lot of experience, because apparently I started in March 3rd of 2020, and the world was ending. Fresno County had the largest single fire in California's history. Right. We had to deal with, you know, a lot of our hospitals were impacted from winter COVID, and now there's another hospital that's closed down, so Madera County doesn't even have a general hospital, which all come to Fresno, you know, and anybody who's in Chowchilla try to make it to one or the other. Right. I have a lot of experience when it comes to dealing and working in these areas, but you're right when you say there's not enough people like myself that are actually out there speaking to the individuals that we haven't spoken to before. But there is an old guard. There is an old guard, and the number one thing that I hear at all of these events that I go to, they're like, well, where are the young people who want, we need to get more youth involved. We need to get more engaging. And yet somebody shows up there and they're like, well, I don't like anything you have to say. And I don't want to do text. And the QR code, I don't want to scan a QR code. Can't you just call me on the phone and give it to me in mail? And like all these things that make it a lot harder when, like, if I'm talking about AI system, they're like, I don't even want to talk to you because all of that is foreign language to me. That makes it very hard for a young conservative to go and say like, hey, it is on us to fight this battle. But a lot more conservatives, again, by the data, are especially younger men. Younger men right now identify more conservative than they ever have in a long time. Younger women are identifying more liberal than they ever have in a long time. But we are winning a lot of these. The first time in history, right now, more Latinos identify as conservative than they do as liberal. Yeah. But that same issue is that when a different individual that probably doesn't always look like the common conservative that you see kind of come in and they have different ideas, they get shut down pretty quickly.
For sure.
They get shut down pretty quickly. And that's an issue where I did a candidate recruiting training for Fresno County to try and win all these seats. The first question I got was somebody tells me, they're like, as a minority, what can I do to like help out when I really don't feel welcome by some of the individuals in there? And I told them, I was like, stop asking somebody to welcome you. Take a chair at the table. Tell them I am a conservative and I deserve to be here too. And maybe they are an ass, because there's a lot of them that I've had to deal with, especially working in this. They are non-welcoming individuals. It really disenfranchises some of the minorities that want to participate in it. And I told them, stop waiting for somebody to affirm your conservative ideology. We can't do that anymore. You have to kick down the door and take a seat at the table. That is the way you do it. We agree. That is the only way you do it. We need more individuals to show up to our central committee meetings. So the central committee, there's a central committee in every single county. If we can get more people that do not look like the same Republicans that like to show up and all that there, that is how you start to effectuate change, because somebody else is going to look at you and say, well, I'm Polynesian and that guy's Polynesian and he's with a bunch of conservatives, and it doesn't seem like they really like him that much because he may be different, or he may be young, or he may be youthful, and all of these, and they're not used to different. Well, I'll tell you this, if we keep doing that, we will get what California has always gotten. We will keep getting the same thing if we keep doing the same thing. That is why we need to step up and make that change. I didn't wait for anybody to tell me that you should be conservative. I didn't wait for anybody to say, well, and I'm being told it right now, well, why don't you wait your turn? And why don't you, because the individual that I'm running against, former congressman, they're like, well, he has more experience and all that. And I tell him, I was like, experience for what? The experience of the past that has gotten us to where we're at today? Right. Are we going to take a step into the future of the direction of what we want for California, or are we going to keep doing the same thing every single time and expect the exact same results?
I love it. So let's get onto this. We got a few minutes left. That was beautifully said. So talking messaging, we're talking all this. This is the Not Offended podcast, and thank you for tuning in. We're talking politics. So how did Florida? Just so everybody understands this. Let's understand this. Who won Florida in 08? Who won Florida in 08?
In 08? Yeah, Barack Obama.
Barack Obama. Follow me. Who won it in 2012?
Barack Obama won it.
And then who won it in 2016?
Trump.
And then now, who won it in 2020 by a landslide now?
Donald Trump.
Okay, what happened?
Florida?
Why? How did Florida shift? And for those of mi gente out there, right, you need to understand that's a lot of Cubanos and a lot of Boricuas, not Mexicans. Okay? However, the reason I said Florida, and we're going to get to Texas and Tejas, how did Texas shift? You have places like McAllen, Texas, close to the border.
Yep.
Democrat, what, last 60 years they said
150 years.
Was that what it was?
It's never been held by a conservative.
And now all of a sudden.
Well, she lost.
Okay.
She won a special election.
She won, and then, but still very close again.
And I love Myra Flores. Exactly. That is the individual.
And now they're saying it's not blue, it's purple. Never before. Headway. So why Florida? Why Texas? And why not California?
See,
then?
And Myra Flores is it's those individuals.
It's the last name, bro. That Flores last name. You know what I'm saying? Special.
She is the messaging that, and where we have to get a lot of conservatives to kind of buy into that.
Okay.
Is that she's also, which I love about her story, she's the first Mexican born
Yep.
in Mexico
Yep.
to win in the United States and to be a House of Representatives. But she also has the story. We need to be better storytellers on those individuals, because it goes back to, and this is, you got to think about it. This generation is the generation where everybody got a trophy, where everybody had to be friends. We need to take that ideology to conservatives and say, can I convince that person to get a beer with me? Even though they might not always agree with all of my policies or some of my core beliefs or all this, but can that person like me? We got to get better at that. We got to get better at being likable.
So how did Trump do it? Talk about polar opposites. Barack Obama, who everybody could have got a beer with. Actually, remember that one guy went after him and he went and got a beer with him. Where I forgot that whole story, but
the plumber one.
Yeah, the plumber guy.
That was actually a fake story.
Oh, was it?
That was not a real story.
He didn't go to beer with him, but I thought that was fun.
It wasn't a real story.
And it was a horrible beer, is what they said. But anyway, but how, two polar opposite people. Nobody could tell a story like Barack. Nobody was there. Hadn't been such a smooth communicator since Ronald Reagan.
Exactly.
Himself.
You're exactly right.
And then you got Donald Trump, who can't even tweet correctly, let alone talk correctly, and it just.
But so, and
How did he
with
do it?
Florida, you just need to look at it from the whole picture. A lot of people, and what most people don't know, there are more registered conservatives in California than any other state. More registered conservatives.
We're the most popular state. Yeah,
we are the most, but we also have the most conservatives registered here.
Okay.
A lot of them moved to these areas, which naturally those areas started to get more red. But also, like you just talked about it, the Cubans and other Latinos and many Venezuelans were moving there. All of these saw, and they started to tell the story. If you want to destroy the area that you're living in, keep voting that ideology.
Gotcha.
It was the individual, it was a patriarchal male in a lot of Cuban families that literally said, I left that country. I left that country because this is what they did in the 60s. This is exactly what they did. It was that individual who started telling the story to his own family members, and it kept permeating throughout, and it made it more and more red. Plus, you got I call them California refugees, just leaving to the other states saying, like, I'm not voting what they did there. Don't do it in California. We have rampant homelessness. The police can't do anything. We don't feel safe. The state of San Francisco has a 35% vacancy rate on all their commercial buildings. They just lost they're losing everything. Don't do that. And they're voting way more conservative in these areas. But that's why I look at somebody like Ron DeSantis, who, he killed this last election in the 2022 cycle.
Don't even remember who ran against him. Yeah.
And that's where he did it in a sense where people want that type of sanity. And the media is doing a really good job right now at really vilifying him and really vilifying Donald Trump. But they're vilifying, as all conservatives kind of in that box. And I go back, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. It was one of the Pierce Brosnan's 007 movies where maybe it was Tomorrow Never Dies or something like that, where there was a media mogul, and he said in there, he was like, we can make the villain a hero and a hero a villain. And he talked about that if it's the person who tells the story that will dictate where policy goes. And you get individuals like in Florida that are very good at talking about these things, like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, and they do it in a sense where it's like, now conservatives that didn't always show up, but they're devout and they're pissed off. They're like, I like that guy. I will always show up. I'll make sure I got to turn in my ballot. That is where, like, Florida has gotten significantly more conservative. Again, you can't do the same thing there. The issue that we have here in California, and I actually spoke to one of the chief strategists in Florida, that person, somebody gets off or they immigrate here or they know, there are Republicans in the airports there saying, well, here are some of our values and why don't you think conservative? The opposite has happened here. Democrats look at it and they're like, oh, let's register everybody and then let's sit in front of the DMV and say, register because you're Latino, you're a Democrat. All of your friends are Latino and Democrats. All of your family are Latinos and Democrats. The Republicans are synonymous with racist. They don't like you. They don't like the way you look. And if you go into one of the Republican Central Committees, you're not welcome. And you're like, oh, that just verified everything that I think. If that's what they think, then I am a Democrat. And even though they don't know that they're voting against their values.
There was a lot there. This is the Not Offended podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wow, that was a lot there. So you said something about storytelling. So if you know anything about storytelling, then you know there's a hero, there's a villain, there's a guide, and then there's the people.
Yep.
And so you got the hero and the villain, right? Which is of course in this we're talking about good versus evil. We're talking about right politics is wrong politics, and you have those who are the guides, because the people are just the people who are caught in the middle. And I really feel like what has been our calling and what we've tried to do on the Not Offended podcast is be the guide. Now the guide is, if you're a big Rocky fan, the guy was Mick.
Yeah.
And that was Rocky's trainer. And every time Rocky would go into a little bit of a slump, or every time Rocky would go to a little bit of disillusionment or being disenfranchised, he'd always reflect back to Mick. And Mick would always say, Rocky, like you got to dig deep and you can't be a lazy bum. And you always have this. For your generation, I'm assuming you're a millennial.
Yep.
You got your Star Wars, by the way, your guys' Star Wars is stuck. That was horrible. You need to go to Gen Xers. We know how to have Star Wars. But you got your Yodas. You got the people who, your Obi-Wan Kenobis. You got the people who are guiding you. I feel like God has done that, has given us a platform where we can help guide those people to understand, listen, we're not going to tell you who to vote for, but we're going to say, listen, you're going to get what you didn't vote for or what you did vote for, and you're going to reap that whirlwind. And I think people in California are seeing that now. It's too much. You have look what happened in Pasadena with the Armenian community.
Exactly.
Saying, listen, knock this off. It's going to come to the Hispanic people. I'm telling you that right now. I'm telling you that.
Only if we can let them know.
It's going to. There ain't no if. It's going to, because people like me are letting the people know that this is what's going on. Mm-hmm. So let's talk strategy on the way out, because you said this. This is what I can't. I'm a simple person, right? Like I didn't get all the fancy stuff in life, and I kind of was raised by my mom and my grandfather. My dad and I had a little bit of a rough patch. We do well now. Love my father. Mm-hmm. We have a great relationship. Here's the deal. You said two things, right? You said the men took charge, the patriarchs in Florida. That's what you said.
A lot, yep. A lot of Latino.
And if you watch the podcast, you're going to see nobody affirms men. And we know what a man is. Just so everybody knows. We know what a man is. And we know what a woman is. So we do that. Here's what I never did understand. Okay, David, I'm going to be on the Not Offended podcast. We're just bluntly honest.
Like I said, I'll go anywhere.
Let's go. So here's what I didn't understand. What I don't understand, and going back to, the old guard, the old regime, what I don't understand about the old guard and the Republican side, in I can go everything from a very liberal conservative like Jerry Dyer, because that's what he is to me, to a very ultra conservative like a Bredfield, and even a Brandel, that type of brash, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yep. What I didn't understand is you have successful Hispanic people in the community who know how to reach other Hispanic people in the community, and you don't pick their brain. You don't say, hey, we need you to help us guide. We need to know the winning playbook. We need to know how you're doing it. So, the Hispanic representative for the National was Reverend Samuel Rodriguez. He's not Mexican. He's Boricua. He's Puerto Rican. But he's up there in your neck of the woods. He's in Elk Grove. He has a church. He pastors a church, and he was the prayer leader for the Hispanic caucus. And so, what do? They picked his brain. How do we reach other Hispanics? And that's what the old guard doesn't seem to understand. And I'm letting you know that because you're in with them. Well,
you got to look in California. The majority population is the Latino population.
You know George Andrews?
Yeah, of course I know
Shout
George.
out George Andrews, my boy.
I love George.
George used to attend our church when he was here. He used to run campaigns.
Yeah, I love George.
So watch this. We're going to put George on blast. George, George, I'm going to send this to you. This is what I told George. George, I said, listen, I told him that he was here. When was he here? You guys remember? 2013? 2012? George,
like
you remember?
Attending?
Yeah. What was he?
Yeah, it's probably been about 10 years.
I remember I took him to lunch. I think we're at Bobby's in the tower. I said, check it out, George. Let me. Oh, you were still playing football for Fresno State back then, huh? You were in high school.
In 2013?
Yeah.
I was in high school.
Yeah. So I sat George down because we were chopping it up about politics. I said, George, let me tell you something. If you ever are going to take back California, you got to find people like me.
Yeah, exactly. You're hit it right on the head.
Right? Mm-hmm. I said, this is what you got to do. I said, listen, I will give you the playbook on how to win Hispanic people. Until then, you're going to lose them to the Miguel Ariases. You're going to lose them to the Nelson Esparzas. You're going to lose them to all the Esmeralda Sorias. You're going to lose them to all these people because you don't know how to reach Mexicans.
Yep.
So what I'm telling you, if you could take any message back to the old guard, is go find some of these young cats who are already reaching their people and say, hey, how are you doing that? Because you know what? I don't say nothing positive about liberals, but I will tell you something positive about liberals. 2 things. They will take anybody in.
Yep.
And and listen very carefully. And in their taking anybody in, this is paramount. And in taking anybody in, they'll find the smartest person, the greatest influencer, and you know what they'll say? Come do what you're doing, but do it for us and make us better. So say what you want about them, but they're always finding the freshest, the most influential.
Exactly.
And they're saying, come run our campaigns, come do our platforms, come write my speech, give me my verbiage. You have Joe Biden going on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God? He don't even know who Charlemagne is. And he tells Charlemagne, you ain't black if you don't vote for Biden? Like whoever wrote that in his script said, he went off cue because we didn't write that. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Which is it, and that's what I am specifically working on. There's actually a project that I'm working on, and it's still under wraps a little bit. It's called CMM, the Conservative Minority Movement, because it takes individuals just like you, because they'll look at me, and even though my joke in my Tongan family is Miko, I look Mexican, but a lot of Mexicans don't look at me and say like, oh, that guy's just kind of a big guy, and he's racially ambiguous. Like, and that's what they look at me. I can't walk into there and
right.
change all of them, but I could do that for the Polynesian community.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
you could do that for the black community, and you could talk to.
You know what?
And I know you're an A.
Bill's dad.
We got Bill.
And but that is where it is finding those strategic.
Bill's dad is white. That's why he said that.
You can find the other 2 moms ones and convince them.
Yeah, there you go.
And keep going from there. But that's the way we do it, because you're 100% right.
Right.
It is, but it also is getting them like, hey, we're working on it. We're working on making a true, and this is where everybody saw it with Reagan, a big umbrella. And that is actually with the work that I'm doing with the state young Republicans, is grabbing these younger individuals. There's another one that I actually know, and I bet he would love to come on with you. He was like, well, I'm thinking about running for office right now. And I was like, well, you're 18 years old. Let me like get you into a couple of these areas.
You talking about Solomon?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he sits in here. I know exactly.
But yeah, that's exactly, yeah. But it's finding those individuals to say, like, I need you to speak, and where this is what we are bringing in new and innovative things that has never been done here in the Central Valley. I'm working with individuals who are starting a direct door-to-door campaign, something that we've never had before. It is these new innovative things that we have to try, because here in the Valley, we have nothing to lose.
You're right.
Everything is dictated by the coast and LA and Sacramento. We have nothing to lose. We must try new. We cannot do the same thing. It's not going to happen. We're never going to reach the Latinos unless we try to go on all these Latino shows, speak to them in Spanish, send mailers out. It is working with, I can't say who they are because of the industries and where they're at.
It's fine.
But I am working with those individuals and say, like, I took the picture of, and this is a part where I get back to the messaging. I took a picture with all the standing ovation of those individuals for the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. I said, that is a mailer or a direct that we recruit a bunch of walkers and talkers, and we get them to go into the Latino community and said, did you know? And I mean, I said, you put on a flyer, it's in Spanish, and it says, the person you voted for just gave a standing ovation to anti-Catholic values. And then it has these messaging, and they're in Spanish. And they walk up to him, and they go, you cannot. Like, we vote, you're voting against God. You're voting against these things. Right. That is what's going to convince them. It's just like there's a parental group that I'm working with right now where I created an entire email template for them, and I made areas blank, and I said, just put your name here and sign it, print it out. It sucks, but I have to do the legwork for a lot of these individuals, and I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to make an email. I got it translated into Spanish. I'm actually using a lot of AI technology because we have to be forward thinking. Right. If they're behind, if we can't even get over websites, That is why we've lost here in California, where if you look at Florida, the moment you get off the plane and they know you're moving here, or any of the realtors, they always say, well, tell them that they're Republican. Here are things that we're voting for. Yeah. California, a Democrat gets born, and if they're from a Latino family, a Democrat was born. That's the way that they think. That we really, in California, we cannot do the same thing. We will fail. Everything will fail. And I've told people, I was like, if a bill like AB 957 is coming through, they're giving us all the ammunition that we need. And we have been so archaic in our approach to it that it's not going to work when they're using TikTok influencers. When Biden is on there, I honestly don't believe, because there's not many individuals in that demographic that even understands what social media is. I feel like he has no idea, and he is being controlled by some far left. There's no way. How many 80-year-olds can you tell me knows what TikTok truly is?
He can't even walk. And
if I tell him, I was like, hey, why don't you want to put this on your story? It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, or like, hey, let's send a Snapchat or do these things. Those individuals aren't doing it, but it's on the left side. Right. They'll welcome all of that new stuff. Yeah. I tell somebody else on the conservative side, like, hey, let's make a video. They look at me like, you're weird. Like, I don't want to put my face on the internet because they'll steal my identity. Right. That's what we're dealing with. I mean, it's honest.
You're right.
And if we must empower the millennials, the individuals, the ones who don't look like us. It's just like in my community. I grew up very poor. Again, my mother's an immigrant. I just finished her immigration paperwork. I am her sponsor because now I can afford it. My father's 100% disabled veteran, but I can go into the Polynesian community and say, I was like, do you guys know, like, if I gave them a pamphlet and it showed somebody stripping on Jesus Christ on a cross and said, hey, these people just supported this group, they look at me and they're like, should we kill them? And I was like, okay, well, hang on.
You must be Polynesian, bro. That's
Sean's line.
But the deep polys, like, I'm aware of that. Like I said, I'm from Sac.
Yeah, I get it.
We know a lot of that family, and there's a reason why I didn't go to Grant and I went to Foothill, because my mom kept us out of that, and that's where I really... like when we were waiting in the food lines, and I've said this before, I mean, my mom would literally tell us, she's like, you may be the poorest American, but you're the richest Tongan because you're in America. Right. And I didn't and this is where I take that ideology and I say, my mother didn't come to an evil, horrible, racist country, because that would basically dishonor her. And if we can retake that back and say, you walk into the Latino community and you say these things, you walk into the black community, you go find the two-mom community, you with the Asian community, that it is on us to do that. But I'll tell you this, if we can't even win Fresno County on the city board or on all of these things, and yet we're always thinking federal, but we can't even win our own 58 counties in California, that's where we're failing. If we can't have a website in Amador County that votes at 86% registration, highest voting county in California, doesn't even have a Republican website, that is where we've lost.
My gosh. Okay, let's do a lightning round. It's closing. We want to get to know David, so I want you guys to think of a question that's personally for him. So, like, David, I'm going to just ask a personal question, then we'll ship it this way. Who's your favorite football team? Not college. I'm talking NFL. Who's your favorite football team?
I'm a devout 49er fan.
Oh,
devout 49er fan. See, I will say this.
Cut it. Cut the program. Don't even air it. What?
Netane Muti plays on the Raiders, so I am a Muti fan. Okay. But I am a 49er fan.
Right.
I've always been. Well, you got even Josh Hokett, who's a former roommate of mine. Josh is now fighting in Bellator. Right. He played on the Niners, so you know what?
So have you got to meet Tafunga? Have you got to meet him?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
no.
Your fellow Tungan right there, who played at SC. Go Trojans. Yeah. Don't ever forget that. Okay, so you're a devout 49er fan. I'm going to forgive you for that because I'm a devout Raider fan. Yeah. But I'm going to forgive you for that, but we're going to move on. Okay, Deshaun, you got a personal question for him?
What's your favorite Mexican restaurant in Fresno?
Oh, that means a lot to him, believe it or not. This is important.
My favorite one? Oh, I will say this. Probably...
Smart man right here.
Well, I'll tell you, the spicy shrimp burrito from Don Pepe's is my favorite.
Hey, you got my vote.
It is my favorite.
I'm voting for you.
I'll tell you this.
That's his number one right there.
Yeah, you got my vote.
About a bunch of friends from Sacramento came to hang out, come watch a football game. We then took him to Don Pepe's right across the street. Spicy shrimp burrito. Told him to get it.
It's amazing.
That was it.
He got your vote, huh?
Yeah, smart man right there. You know what I'm talking about?
That's it. There was a video that was going around too, where somebody was in Australia and they flew and they're like, I've been waiting for this, and he walks into Don Pepe's and he said, I flew across the country or the world to come to Don Pepe's. So I seen that viral video. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I didn't see
Don Pepe's spicy shrimp burrito.
You can be the spokesman. I mean, you love it that much. Go ahead, Token. What you got for
Trying
him?
to get an NIL deal. Do you go to church? Where?
Yeah, well, the new well just opened up, and so I'm actually thinking about there with Brad.
Oh, okay.
And I actually just talked to Brad on, I think it was last Wednesday, a Cup of Joy. But the well, I'll claim the well as my main. I've been to a couple other ones, People's Church, and it's Trinity Life Center is my home church. That is where I grew up. That is where my heart's at. And I don't know if you knew Pastor Cole. Pastor Cole was the one who started the first mega church in Sacramento.
Yeah, Glenn Cole, yes.
Capital Christian.
Yeah, Capital Christian. I knew his son too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, loosely. I mean, because I was in a different denom, but I know him. Yeah.
Pastor
Yeah.
Glenn Cole was mine, and so Trinity Life Center is still my home church. Every time I go back home, I'm with my mom, and we go
So
check
that's
it
his
out.
son's church, right? Trinity, or the.
It was his grandson, but
that's- yeah,
then there were
okay. I
politics.
just read that. I just read that. Okay, yes,
there were
yes.
politics in church.
So
which
I had
is
a good
unfortunate.
friend who was. I will talk to you off air, but I had a good friend who helped with that
At Trinity?
So, yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
but Pastor Cole, I'll tell you this, that I still go back and I watch a lot of his messaging. I've never met a man that was like so devout to like the love he had for his wife, the messaging that he could really push out. And it's
Smart
like,
man.
just so, and I'll tell you this, he didn't keep politics away from the church. He would always say, he was like, these things are coming up and we must be prepared as you are a Christian and you must vote as you are.
If I could piggyback real quick, you would like this. He actually wrote a couple segments in grandfather.
Yep.
He wrote a couple segments in Jack Hayford's study Bible book, so you can read about that. He was a great theologian. He was very, very, very smart. His school up there, well respected within the Christian community theologically.
But here, the well with Brad Bell.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I'll bring it back to politics in your campaign. How do people find you
there you
and
go.
work? How can people support you?
Yeah, well, if they can find me at David Tangipa. The easiest way to spell my name is Tang IPA. I'm trying to get a signature beer on that with a can. But Tang IPA for assembly.com. So they could find me there. And if they ever want to reach out, they could always, my campaign line is 559-425-6520. I've said it a million times this weekend, so got it locked in. And really supporting my campaign is actually just getting the message out. Sharing my social media, looking at Facebook, all of these.
Give us your handles. on
It's just
social media.
David Tangipa for Assembly. My Instagram is David J Tangipa, Tangipa.
There's not gonna be another one out there, so there we go.
My last name comes from one island, and
Yeah.
that is given to my family. If they have that last name, they are most likely, they are related to me. There's no getting
Nice.
around that. And so, they could just, my website is probably the best where they could read about my platforms, what I want to do when it comes to talking about common sense policies for California, how we can actually negotiate with others through pressure campaigns and all of these different things to just bring common sense. Because that's what we have to do when it comes to California. Just common sense. And so they could, again, find me David Tangipa, Tang IPA, for assembly.com. So that they could find me on all of those platforms.
Real quick, when is this race going to take place, just so the audience knows?
So the actual race is on March 5th, but with California, we have 30 days before that. So technically, February 5th is where people will get their ballots.
Okay.
But I'm really campaigning hardcore really in the beginning of December, where I'm actively like, vote for me, here's a sign, here's all of these, here's the brochures. But I jumped in this race so early because I think honestly right now it is dire that we start something new.
Yes.
This is dire that we must take the step forward because of bills like 957. And you get a senator that has been serving for almost 12 years, and he said, if you love your kids, flee California.
Right.
I'm not ready to flee. One, I can't because my family's all here. A lot of them, I'm not abandoning them.
Right.
I'm not. I can't afford it. They can't afford it. And it's my goal to fight for our home. That's what we want. If you're not leaving California, you have to get involved now. You have to get involved because San Francisco is already showing you that is the case study of what will come to California. They're gonna funnel everything in because there are other lawsuits that I've helped write and I've helped give other individuals that the state saw that we were fighting against these. So what did they do? They decided to take away local power from our board of supervisors, city council members, and other people and say, we'll funnel it into the state. So now we're suing the state. We're suing the state on, there's a bill called AB 2022. It is individuals like myself and others out there. We may be small right now, but it's the resistance. It's the resistance against the California machine, because we all want to live the American dream, but right now we're living the California nightmare. I mean, that is what it is.
So good.
We have to be different.
Yeah. Hey, this has been the Not Offended podcast, man. This is one to tune in. This is one for you to share and get it out there, especially if you're a California resident. We want to thank our special guest, David Tangipa. That is Tang IPA is what he said. I just encourage you, man, go check out this man's platform. I know he's won us over here, and we just believe in what he's doing. And it's good to have a breath of fresh air, someone trying to just hold that resistance to California. For those of you watching this from out of state, man, keep us lifted up in prayer. Keep us on your mind. I'm telling you right now, we need all the help we can get out here. We are trying to take back California in Jesus' name. Thank you for tuning in. Not Offended Podcast. Your boy Ant. I'm out. Peace. See you next week.